The Admiral's voice thundered across the command deck. "Stand down, Lieutenant. You're dismissed." But before she could even leave the room, the roar of engines shook the base. A full squadron of F-22 Raptors tore through the clouds, their formation precise, their orders clear, and they weren't listening to him. They were listening to her. The air in the operations room was thick with tension. Radar screens glowed, static crackled through the comms, and staff officers moved in hurried silence. At the head of the table, Admiral Harrison adjusted his cap and barked orders, his tone leaving no room for hesitation. Across from him stood Lieutenant Commander Sarah Keene. Her uniform was crisp, her posture straight, but her eyes betrayed no deference. She listened, arms folded behind her back, as the Admiral's orders rattled off one by one. Finally, she spoke. "Sir, with respect, if you send those pilots out on that flight path, they won't come back." The room went still. Junior officers froze mid-step, and the hum of the air conditioners suddenly seemed deafening. Harrison's gaze snapped to her, his jaw tightening. "Lieutenant Commander," he said slowly, as though savoring each syllable. "You are out of line. This briefing is not your stage." Sarah didn't flinch. "It's not about stage time, Admiral. It's about lives. They'll fly straight into an ambush if they follow that plan. I have a counter route that keeps them alive and still gets the job done." Murmurs rippled through the room. For a young officer to openly challenge the Admiral was practically unthinkable. Everyone knew Harrison's reputation. Uncompromising, sharp, and quick to end a career with a single stroke of his pen. He leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "I don't need theories from someone who hasn't seen half the battles I have. You're dismissed." The word landed like a gavel strike. Sarah's face remained unreadable, but her silence spoke volumes. She didn't salute, didn't step back. She simply stood there, as though the order had never been given. One of the junior officers, clearly nervous, whispered under his breath, "She should leave before he makes it official." But before Harrison could repeat himself, a rumble began in the distance. At first it was faint, like thunder on the horizon. Then it grew louder. The walls trembled. The glass panes along the side of the operations room rattled in their frames. The sound was unmistakable, jet engines. Dozens of them. Every head in the room turned toward the windows as shadows swept across the ground outside. And then, slicing through the clouds in flawless formation, came a squadron of F-22 Raptors. Sleek, fast, deadly. The comms officer scrambled to adjust the radio. "Sir, they're on our channel. But they're not reporting to Central Command. They're calling for her." The Admiral's expression faltered for the first time. His eyes narrowed at Sarah. She finally allowed herself the faintest of smiles. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" she asked. But this time it didn't sound like a request. The squadron's roar slowly faded as the Raptors cut into wide circles above the base. Their formation was flawless, no hesitation, no drifting, no wasted motion. These weren't pilots flying on instinct alone. They were following a commander. And that commander was standing right in front of the Admiral. Harrison's jaw clenched. "What game are you playing, Lieutenant Commander? How are they even here? Who gave them clearance?" Sarah didn't blink. "They're not here by accident, sir. They're here because I told them to be." Gasps broke out among the staff. An Admiral's authority was supposed to be absolute, yet the Raptors, the most advanced fighters in the U.S. arsenal, had just bypassed his orders to answer to her. The Admiral slammed a fist on the table. "Impossible. No squadron would disobey direct chain of command." That was when one of the younger officers, a communications specialist named Patel, hesitated before speaking up. "Sir, with respect, it's not impossible. The Raptor pilots, they've flown with her before. They trust her. Word is, she saved half their lives in Kandahar." All eyes turned to Sarah. She didn't confirm it. She didn't deny it. She simply let the silence stretch, her steady gaze saying more than words ever could. Patel continued, emboldened. "During the Kandahar strike, the squadron was trapped. SAM sites locked them in. Central Command told them to hold position, But he nodded toward Sarah. She broke rank. Ordered a new maneuver, one that wasn't even in the manual. They all made it back alive. Sir. They'd follow her into hell. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. That's not in any report I've read. Sarah's voice was calm, but edged with steel. Because I didn't file it. I wasn't looking for credit, Admiral. I was looking for results. The tension in the room shifted. Officers who once sat rigid under the Admiral's rule now leaned forward, curiosity, and perhaps admiration, lighting their faces. Harrison tried to reassert control. That doesn't give you the right to hijack my command. For the record, sir, Sarah replied evenly. I didn't hijack anything. I gave them an option. They chose me. That's not a breach of command. It's loyalty earned. The Admiral stood, towering over her. His shadow stretched across the table, but she didn't move. You think a few war stories and the admiration of hotshot pilots makes you a leader? Leadership isn't won in the skies. It's decided here in these rooms with strategy, discipline, and order. Sarah's eyes didn't waver. Leadership is decided wherever lives are on the line, whether it's a boardroom or a battlefield. And right now, those raptors trust me to keep them alive. That's not ego. That's history. Silence gripped the room once again. For the first time, it wasn't clear whose side the officers were on. Above, the raptors banked as one, waiting for her next word. The operations room pulsed with silence, broken only by the steady hum of radar screens and the faint crackle of comms. Outside, the F-22 Raptors carved precise arcs across the sky, engines rumbling like distant thunder. They weren't here for the Admiral. They were waiting for her. Admiral Harrison's face darkened, his voice rising. This is insubordination of the highest order. You've undermined my authority in front of my own staff, Lieutenant Commander. Do you understand what this means for your career? Sarah didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. I understand exactly what it means, sir. It means those pilots outside have a choice. They can follow an order that will get them killed, or follow a commander who will get them home. Her words cut through the air like a blade. No one moved. No one dared breathe. The comms crackled again. A pilot's voice, calm but firm, filled the room. Control, this is Raptor Lead. Standing by for Keen's orders. The Admiral's eyes snapped toward the console, but the officer at comms only stared at him, frozen. To acknowledge the call meant admitting what everyone could already see. Command of the skies didn't belong to him anymore. Sarah's voice was calm, but carried undeniable authority. Raptor Lead, hold your pattern at 20,000. Await coordinates. Copy that, the pilot replied instantly. The room erupted in murmurs. The Admiral slammed both hands on the table. Enough! This ends now. But even as he barked, his words rang hollow. The squadron hadn't hesitated. They hadn't even asked for clarification. They had obeyed her instantly, without question. It was the kind of loyalty he had spent his whole career demanding, yet she had earned it without ever asking. Harrison's chest rose and fell, anger warring with a dawning, bitter realization. He could strip her of rank. He could file charges. But none of it would change what he had just witnessed. His men, his aircraft, his command, all had deferred to her. Sarah spoke again, quieter now, but with even more force. Sir, I don't want your chair. I don't want your command. What I do want is for those pilots, and every man and woman in this room, to know that their lives mean more than protocol. If that costs me my career, then so be it. But at least I'll still be able to look them in the eye. The words lingered in the silence that followed. Officers exchanged glances, subtle nods, the first cracks forming in the Admiral's iron grip on the room. Finally, Harrison exhaled slowly. His shoulders slumped, the weight of the moment pressing him down. You may not want my command, Lieutenant Commander. His voice was low, grudging. But you've just taken it. Outside, the Raptors roared once more, as if answering the verdict in the skies. And for the first time in his long career, Admiral Harrison understood. The sky didn't obey rank. It obeyed respect,